Welcome, NEC fans, and thank you for joining us as we celebrate National Girls and Women in Sports Day with our student athletes. My name is Adrian Barajas, and I'm the Communications Assistant at the NEC. I would like to thank the two student athletes for joining us today and offering to share their success, words of encouragement to the next generations, and ideas for future direction in women's sports. Let's start by going around the room and introducing ourselves.
Yes, hi, my name is Meehan. I am a student athlete at Wagner College. I compete in triathlon and I'm a senior. I am majoring in psychology and sports administration.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Julia Breneman. I'm a junior on the St. Francis University field hockey team, and I'm a double major in marketing and management.
Awesome. So thanks again for joining us today on the NEC Overtime Pod. And why don't we dive into some questions? So Julia, what kind of words would you use to describe your journey in becoming a Division I student athlete?
It's overwhelming, but it's like excited chaos almost to describe it summed up. I know the recruiting process is different for different schools, but here at St. Francis, they really do a good job of having you meet the team, having you meet different athletic administrators and academic administrators, and they make it a really inviting process. And my time here has just been awesome. I am a junior, so I've been here for 3 years, and overall, it's just a really community-based school, and it's been really good, especially as a female athlete. They really support us here, and they want to hear our needs as well as our gratefulness for the program in the school.
Amazing. No, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing what that journey has been like for you. How about yourself, Allie?
Yeah, I would say rewarding and inspiring. Sometimes things become really overwhelming. Like Julia was saying, like sometimes it just seems like so much. But then it's like the next day or the next week, like you realize that you did all of that and you're still moving forward and you're still here. Sometimes it just seems like, wow, like I have so much to do, like so much to do with my sport, so much to do with academics, just things on campus. And I feel like as student athletes, we want to be involved in so many different ways. And then we become involved and it's super rewarding, but also just so inspiring. Like through things like SAC and through things on my own campus, like I see so many people doing great things and that makes me want to do great things as well. So just being on a campus like that and being around people like that is really inspiring.
Amazing. And Allie, can you and explain a couple of factors that kept you motivated to become the student athlete that you are today?
Yeah, I would say just seeing the people around me do things that I wanted to do. I think when I was a freshman, I saw a girl on my campus who was on the tennis team become involved in national sac. I was like, wow, like that's really cool. I wonder like how I can do that. And then I heard about like a position opening, and I was like, that is what I want to do. Then I applied and I got it, and now I'm doing what she was doing, which is really cool. So just things like that, just seeing things that other people have done and becoming inspired by that, and realizing that like I can apply. Like maybe I'll get it, maybe I won't, but it's worth applying and giving it a shot.
For sure. It's awesome that you've had and come across fellow student athletes that have that you've aspired to be like, and it's clear, like look at you now, the co-chair of SAC, and you know some great stuff that you're doing, and I'm sure that the way that individuals ahead of you have left an impact on you, you'll be able to do for others. So that's awesome. And Julia, can you name and explain a couple of factors that kept you motivated to become the student athlete that you are today?
Yeah, just like atmosphere. I mean, I kind of explained a little bit. This is very like community based, and we really have team supporting teams here. And if I see the success of one team, I want that success for my team, and it just goes vice versa. All the teams are really supportive of each other, and same thing. You see people ahead of you that have accomplished great things, and it makes you want to accomplish great things, not just because like you want to beat them so and so, but because you see that it's possible, and like it's just inspiring, really.
Amazing. Awesome to hear. And Julia, looking back on the evolution of women's sports, what about today's day and age, and as women belonging to Generation Z, have assisted you in your success as D1 student athletes?
That's a big question. Overall, I think now, especially because of social media, we see so much more coverage of women's sports, especially like on Instagram, on Twitter, because the news has everything, but I feel like all of our generation is on Instagram. So we see all those really popular student athletes posting, getting NIL deals. It's just more appreciation for that side of the sport. And overall here, we do women and national women and girls like sports. So we actually have a lunch this coming week on Wednesday at like 6:50 in the morning because it has to be before classes. So we have a lunch and we're gonna have a speaker, but it really just shows the support from like the school that they have for us and overall just appreciation. And I feel like it's built on that because St. Francis used to be an all boys school and
Mhm.
here we are and we're getting our own lunch. So it's great. It's an awesome opportunity.
No, absolutely. And you've shared a couple of those topics that have certainly assisted today's society. And you mentioned the opportunity for NIL deals, social media exposure. Ali, is there anything else that, looking back on the evolution of women's sports, that you feel also has assisted your success as a D1 student athlete?
Yeah, I just feel like there's just so many more opportunities. The sport that I'm doing, triathlon, is a product of sort of Title IX because more women's sports needed to be added to balance out with the men's. So
Mhm.
it was added, I think, in 2013 or 2014. I think 2014. And when I was younger and I saw that, I was like, wow, that is such a cool opportunity. Now there's over 40 schools that have women's triathlons, so it should
Wow.
be becoming an official NCAA sport. So just that alone is just a whole opportunity for a group of girls, and just all the other emerging sports for
Mhm.
women just provide so many great opportunities, especially when they're Olympic sports. They're feeding into Help Team USA is really awesome.
For sure. That is amazing to see. Um, just the progress, how it's becoming like a snowball effect, and all these sports are emerging, and the recognition that these sports and women in sports truly deserve. So that's awesome that from 2014 to today, you can see the progression. Um, Awesome. And Julia, could you share an accomplishment or an experience during your career that has made the journey all worth it to you?
Well, this past fall, my team made it to the Final Four for the NEC Conference Championship, and that is something that the program has not been able to do in 7 years, partially
Uh,
due to COVID and partially that we were out of the conference. But just getting back there, being in the atmosphere, playing against some of the best in the conference. Wagner was there too, and it was at Wagner, so it was just really cool to experience that. And I think the whole team just kind of felt like a sense of pride and
mhm.
accomplishment, especially after all the hard work you put in. The 9-hour travel hours on the bus and eating lots of Olive Garden and all of the repetitiveness, but eventually making it to the goal and having a shot at that championship, especially as a young team. Like some of it was our first or second years playing, so it was just a really great opportunity.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. Ali, how about yourself? An accomplishment or an experience during your career that has made the journey all worth it to you?
Yeah, I think just one of my experiences would be sort of like the reflection on how college sport has like helped me through my life. I'm sort of in the process of applying to grad schools and writing about myself, and a lot of like the career I want to go into relates to college sport. I want to go into sports psychology, and it's pretty cool to like write and reflect on how like my experience as a student athlete has sort of led me to that career. I faced a bit of burnout, like quite a bit, whenever I was like sort of throughout COVID, so my sophomore and junior years, and that sort of made me realize how like passionate I am about sports psychology and the mental health resources. So
Mhm.
just like that experience of being able to learn where I want to go in my life past college sport has been really really cool.
Awesome. And I'm kind of going off script here, but you brought up a topic that I think we could shed some light on. So like as student athletes, and when you get to college, and it's like tougher than it's ever been, more competitive on top of the workload, and it's you're studying more than you ever have. Everything is elevated, and then you mentioned sometimes student athletes can feel burned out, and that's awesome that you've turned to like the direction of mental health and sports psychology, which is Awesome. So Julia and Allie, feel free to take turns speaking. Just what kind of advice, what is something that you would share with someone else that is experiencing burnout? Like if you've experienced it yourself and come out of it, or going through it, or have gone through it, what would you want the other people to keep in the back of their head when if they get to that point? Like if there's anything that you would like to share on that idea of feeling burnt out, especially at just such a competitive and busy, your schedule is packed, and with class and extra meetings, you guys are involved in extracurriculars on top of expecting to perform at 110% during practice and during the season and in postseason. So what might you say to those that might come across that feeling of feeling burnt out?
Allie, do you want to
Um,
go? Or?
yeah.
Okay.
I think just being open about it and honest, and this is still something that I've thought about pretty recently. Um, I think for me, like being able to like communicate that with your coaches, and I think in general, like just being able to communicate with your coaches and whoever you need to about that is really important, because I think as student athletes, a lot of times we show up to practice and we act our best selves. Like we are there to do the work, and then we'll go home and then we'll figure everything else out. And I think that that's not always the best way to go about it. I think having those conversations, especially early on with coaches, when you start to feel feelings like I'm so overwhelmed, I
Mhm.
like, do I like this anymore? Do I want to keep doing this? Just having those early on can really be helpful in the long run before it gets like so overwhelming you just don't even know what to do about it. So just being open to have those kind of conversations with your coaches or whoever you need to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say overall, just like cut yourself some slack. I mean, you work so hard and you've worked so hard to get there. There's only a small portion of high school athletes that become college student athletes. So, like,
Mhm.
remind yourself of that because you did the work to get there. Like, you don't always have motivation, but you always have to have consistency. And that's just something that you can work on, you can
Mhm.
tailor, and there's people around you that want to see you succeed. So, same thing with Allie, like, talk to your coaches, talk to your teammates, like, even academic advisors. I know that they're there for you and they don't want you to give up on something that you love. So definitely cut yourself some slack and just like process what you feel. You don't always have to like shove it away.
Those are some awesome words of encouragement and advice from the both of you. You guys really emphasize that communication to be open. Uh, don't feel like you have to go through the motions on your own. That you can reach out to teammates, coaches, psychologists, or any type of psychological services on campus, and just cutting yourself some slack, recognizing that like it's very hard to be 110%. Like it's not going to be like that every single day. So cutting yourself some slack and say it's okay to have a bad day, or take it, shift down a gear and take a load off, and so that you can feel rejuvenated for the rest of that week or that season or that semester. So awesome, great words of encouragement for those that might begin to start to feel burnout and overwhelmed and not know where to turn or what to do. Cool. So Julia, could you share some female athlete role models that you looked up to and why?
Oh my goodness. Well, I feel like I just love Serena Williams. Like, just her work ethic and even being like a woman of color in sports. Like,
Mhm.
she's very intense, she's very muscular, but she is such a hard worker. And
Mhm.
just like seeing her daughter match with her at like her final match, that was so cute. And it's just like, it makes you want to work hard, seeing how hard that she's worked. That's just definitely one of my big role models. I mean, there's so many others, but
Yeah, no,
that's my number
absolutely.
one. Serena's my number one.
No, absolutely. That she is certainly an inspiration to our society and to all walks of life. Yeah, no, definitely a fan favorite. Allie, how about yourself? Some female athletic role models that you've looked up to and why?
Yeah, I would have to say Simone Biles. I think she's just queen. I don't know. She just, I mean, I would love to meet her someday, but she just seems like such a cool woman. And she seems like someone who has gone through a lot, especially with Team USA gymnastics and facing some really tough circumstances. And she just seems like someone who keeps showing up, keeps doing the work because she really loves the sport. And I think that that's something that's amazing to see. Like, just people love the sport so much that they just want to keep doing it. And what happened at the last Olympics, her stepping away because of mental health, I totally respect that. I think that, I can't even imagine the amount of pressure in those moments. And especially just thinking about everything that she's faced with Team USA and all those hard issues. It's really respectable that she can be in a really competitive scenario and be able to admit if she is not feeling her best and feeling able to perform.
Yeah, no, and I think that's kind of sheds light of what we were just talking about, of feeling burnt out or overwhelmed, that it's okay to step away. Like, your mental health, your just the feelings you may be experiencing are far more important than putting on a show for others, and I think too that, you know it sets an example. She's on such a big stage, she has this platform that other people can look up to her and say, like, hey, if I need to walk away and come back to something like this, that I can, because you know uh resetting and just feeling okay with who I am. And you show up to this thing and feeling all this pressure, you're expected, already expecting to do great, but when you have this mental strain and over sense of overwhelm, and you're not going to be able to perform at your best. And that's kind of what Julia was saying, like, cut yourself some slack. Like, if you need to step away and come back to this, or open up that communication line, you know you have the liberty to do so. So yeah, it's absolutely a great role model. um why don't we shift gears a little bit into inspiring the younger generation? So Ali, how does participation in sports benefit girls and women, both physically and mentally?
Yeah, I think that sort of what I was saying before, just with all the opportunities, I think when girls are and women are able to become in these communities that like uplift them and provide support for everything that they want to do in life, I think those are some of the best programs and best ways to like meet people and gain like really strong friendships and
Mhm.
communities. I think nowadays with like social media and technology, like there's so many like virtual groups and like virtual ways to like connect to people, but I think that like nothing beats that in-person connection and just like meaningful relationships with people, and just being able to have that support system in your own life is great.
Absolutely. Julia, would you like to add to that, and like the benefits of participating in sports physically and mentally?
I think overall, there, especially this day and age, I kind of want to shift it towards like the psychological side of stuff, and like
Mhm.
eating disorders and a lot of that stuff happens. Especially with social media, I feel like women are drawn in to like the idea of having like an unhealthy relationship with food. And I know a couple of my teammates have built stronger relationships because they're on a sports team, because they're surrounded with those individuals that see the impact of them not eating enough before practice, and having a
Mhm.
coach that cares and wants them to reach out for help, and just having those resources available for them, I think helps them in the long run. Because, in high school, they may have struggled with that more. But now at college, whenever we're on the road and we're with each other a little more than we want to be, we kind of
Mm.
nag them, and it gets them thinking about like what this means for them in the long run, which really could affect them physically. And I think just building that strong relationship is a really good opportunity that comes with being a part of a sport, being a part of an athletic department that wants its students to thrive. And I just think that's a really meaningful part of being a part of the program.
No, absolutely. And you've brought up an emerging topic, and it's been around, but it's definitely growing, especially with social media. That how people view themselves, their body image, and that like you said, when you have that support system with your teammates and your coaching staff, that it allows you to open up that conversation and feel comfortable that you have that support, that if you're going through something like an eating disorder, or any type of other, like psychological obstacle that you may be facing, that participating in these sports, in part of a sports team allows you to have that support system to feel like you're well taken care of, and that it's a safe space to open up and have those conversations. So yeah, that's awesome that you shed some light on that, because it's certainly a topic that should be talked about more. Awesome. And Julia, as a female student athlete playing at the highest level of collegiate sports, what advice would you offer to young female athletes?
Yeah, have fun. I mean, it can be stressful, like getting recruited, looking at schools, but definitely visit as much as you can, talk to the people as much as you can. I know, like even as a junior, like if a recruit comes in, and like you can always reach out and ask any questions that you might
Mhm.
not want to ask the coach, just because this is where you're going to spend 4 years of your life. Like, make sure that it's the right place for you, and not necessarily just because of the name of the school or the prestige of the school. Like, really find somewhere that suits your needs and what you're looking for. Because overall, like, you're there to have fun, you're there to bond with your team, you're there to learn and really grow in your major. So make sure it's a good fit for you, and look at all different types of schools, even if you don't think you're interested. Like, just
Mhm.
seeing the variety is definitely important.
Absolutely. That's some awesome advice. Thank you for sharing. Ali, how about yourself? What kind of advice would you offer to young female athletes that may be aspiring to participate at the highest level of collegiate sports?
Yeah, I think just like going for it. Like, I think that in college we have so many opportunities. Like, starting with the recruiting process, you have schools that you, or teams, you think that, oh, maybe they're too good for me, or maybe this is just right, or maybe, oh, I can play like on a higher level team than this team. And I think just like those reach schools and those programs that you think you're like, I don't know if I would have playing time, or I don't know if I would really help the team. I think reaching out to those coaches and giving it a shot is like great. And I think that
Mm.
coaches really value that kind of initiative. I think oftentimes we're like a little bit afraid to sort of like step out of our comfort zone and like, email those coaches or call them. And like that's just with the recruiting process. Then like when we're in college, like having those hard conversations that we aren't quite sure if we're going to get it or not, I think are really important in college. Because sort of what I was saying before, like I've talked with a lot of professors about this. Like when we're in college, we have so many opportunities. Like it's 4 years where we're with all people who are at our sort of same level. We have access to professors, to coaches, to an athletics department. Like we have so many opportunities right here before we go out into the real world. And it's not that we lose those connections, it's that we aren't as like physically close to them.
Mm.
So just applying to those reach schools, like having these harder conversations, is really, really important for younger generations. And I think it's just important to like not lose your sense of value and like remembering who you are and how much you're capable of. You aren't just a student athlete, like you're about to maybe graduate and you're about to go into the real world. So just keeping that in mind.
No, absolutely. That both of you have shared some awesome pieces of advice, and no, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. And then to close for inspiration for the younger generation. So, are there any areas of growth that you would like to see in women's sports for these future generations? What are they? What can we do to make these changes? Ali, if you want to start us off.
Yeah. I might need to think for a second.
All good. Yeah, take your time. Just future growth for women's sports, for the younger generations. Is there anything that you just want to see different for the upcoming student athletes and women in sports?
I think just continuing to have our voices be heard and taking part in bigger conversations.
Mhm.
Um, okay, actually, sorry, maybe cut that.
Yeah,
I
no
don't know,
problem.
Julie, you
No,
can go first.
no
I don't know.
I don't know yet either. Okay.
all good. I
Do you
mean,
want me to go?
Yeah,
Okay, you want me
I
to
don't
go?
know. Yeah, you can go.
Okay, so for in the future, while it's still growing, I really want to see just um, intensity, honestly. Like I've been seeing a lot of like our sports here, like the girls, I love the pictures where they're just like, oh, like they're just like they show the passion for their sport, which I mean can sometimes be not as accepted, and I want it to be like more accepted. I want it to be seen on social media like this basketball team is hype, like look at this goal celebration from a lacrosse player. Like um we see it a lot in like men's sports, but I think women's sports, like we kind of tend to hold back our emotions whenever we do accomplish something great. I think that that should grow, and people should value that, especially on like especially ESPN top 10. Like they've been showing more like women's soccer goals in the fall, and I think that just having that inclusivity is something that's really important and should continue to grow and be shed light upon.
Absolutely. You bring up a really good point. I think, that ties into media exposure and visibility of women's sports. In 2019, I think there was a statistic saying that about like approximately 5.5% of 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 women's there was only 5.5% of airtime for women on like being broadcasted on TV. And if you take away the Women's World Cup in 2019, it dropped to like 3.5%, and that included ESPN Sports Center. So, and I think part of it ties into like how women are being portrayed, what's actually being posted. So like when you see the passion that these women have in these sports, and the celebrations, and on top of their achievement, um absolutely, I think you brought up a good point, just that the way women are being portrayed should be accurate to what's actually happening on the field. um awesome, thank you for sharing. Ali, feel free to add on to that if you'd like.
Yeah, I think what Julia was saying, yeah, just the passion for this sport, I think, is something that I really want to like not see more of, because women are, I think, equally passionate about their sport, but just like
Mhm.
women who are just going all in, like who are playing their sport, but also like who are great teammates and who are inspiring the next generation. Just those key women in sport, I think, are um, really helpful for women in sport. Just inspiring all types of women in sport.
Awesome, absolutely. And then we'll transition to what more we want to see in women's sports. So could one of you share some of the disparities in funding, facilities, and media coverage between men and women's sports? How can we address this?
Go ahead.
I know we saw it with Oregon basketball, just the disparity in the NCAA
Mhm.
championship. That's another thing, like through social media, we're exposed to more coverage about women's sports, and we do see the negative sides of it as well. I think that overall, just like addressing it, I think that the way they addressed it was really important because it showed that they weren't just brushing it under the rug, um, and just continuing to see the equality in the different same sport aspects, just having equal funding, equal exposure. I think that would be really important.
And Ali, touching upon what Julia just mentioned, what do you think we can do to address all of this? Do we use social media? Do we, use platforms like this podcast to speak about it and try and push it to the masses? What are some ways do you think that would, address these situations in order to get the proper funding, the proper facilities, and media coverage for women's sports?
Yeah, I think that social media is a great way to connect with people all over. But I think just keeping people excited about women's sport, like
Mhm.
just like talking about it, and it's exposing the public about like what's going on, which women are playing where, just like getting people more excited about it, because it seems like right now people are so excited about men's sports and football and men's basketball, and but we need to do the same with women, just exposing people more to the sports, the teams, and everything like that.
And this brings us to the last question I have for us. Um, how can fans, athletes, and other stakeholders in women's sports work together to advocate for better support and coverage? And if you look at the case of professional sports, equal pay specifically.
I think overall, just keeping that communication open,
Mhm.
especially with technology, like you can zoom in for meetings with stakeholders and the different teams and where they're going to be playing and have kind of an outline of expectations that they have, just kind of talking it out and not just assuming. I think communication would
Right.
be really important moving forward in that.
Ali, anything you'd like to add on to Julia's answer?
Yeah, I agree with communication. I also just think like reaching out to the leadership, like coming together as a team and deciding on what you want. That's something that like my team actually at college sort of did, and we drafted what we wanted and we went to the administration. And even if it didn't necessarily work out, like we at least proposed our idea, and
Mhm.
honestly, it was really empowering. And it's empowering when women are able to do that, go to the administration and propose what we think can work and maybe what can't. So I think just teams continuing to do that, and sort of like what we were talking about before with inspiring the younger generations, like I think the first step is just deciding that you can do that. You can write the letter or have the conversation to people who you aren't quite sure if it'll work, but you can at least just give it a try, because that you don't lose anything from that.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And that is all the time we have for today. Thank you, NEC fans, for watching and recognizing our student athletes in celebration of National Girls and Women's in Sports Day. See you next time on the NEC Overtime Pod.